Hey, hello and welcome to all of you. It feels like I just saw you in part one of this class. But now it is part two of this class. For today, we're going to do some very basic explaining of the class as a whole. And with the rest of our time, I want to form our first game group and get started brainstorming and thinking about what it is that you want to make. So that's the plan for the day. Overall course description and starting thinking about what we want to make because we're on a clock already. So game dev 2, done is the time of learning about games, and now it is time to make them. It is much more exciting than learning about them. As exciting as learning about them hopefully was, if I'm doing my job remotely well. So class time in here is a little bit strange. We have lectures Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a lab on Friday. I apologize for the lab on Friday, but no one else was volunteering to get out of the glut that was every lab, I think, was on Wednesday for just about every class. And so they asked for volunteers for who wanted to move their lab off of Wednesday. Nobody volunteered. So I volunteered by default. I tried to not, but no one else would budge. And the pre-tenure professor keels where the tenured professor does not. So our lab is on Friday. This will actually work quite well for us, I think. As annoying as it is to have a lab on a Friday afternoon, I think it works well with the structure of the class. So I don't hate it, probably as much as you do. So for this class, you're going to make 2 games from scratch. Let's actually talk about that schedule as we do it. The first 4 weeks of the class will be development of our first game. The Sunday of the end of week 4 is going to be the day that the game is due. And week 5 will be spent reviewing each other's games, preparing for an exam, and taking an exam. Then we're going to repeat that exact same 5-week process a second time, where we will develop a second game. You will not be working with anyone you worked with on game 1 for game 2. I will be throwing all grad students together. So grad students cannot work together on game 1, and grad students will be forced to work together on game 2. That is because extra requirements are coming your way due to the material that we are covering in the first 5 to 6 weeks of the class. So the class material, as we do this on the Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, this will not be every day. It'll probably be an average of about 2 days a week. I will be lecturing on reinforcement learning and game agents. So how do we make intelligent game behavior that we don't necessarily prescribe, that is learned through experience? We'll talk about exactly how to do that, probably at a level of detail that is beyond what you would be interested in knowing. But reinforcement learning is a rabbit hole that I cannot stop talking about. It is the coolest thing in computer science from my own perspective. And I say this as a person who can make people like compilers. Reinforcement learning is even cooler. Yeah.
You might be about to talk about it. Well, you said there would be turning in the code itself. Is it going to be not on Canvas, truly?
Yeah, it'll definitely be on Git. So you'll be using Git for your own projects. And one of you will be hosting that Git, and then you'll be submitting basically the executable in a downloadable and playable format for everyone else to play. You'll be reviewing 4 games that you did not make.
We're going to talk about it all about how like version control works for this sort of project.
Not a ton. There is a Unity git ignore, and that solves most of the problems. But there will be a lot of figuring out exactly how that works. The reason that I had the prerequisite of software engineering for part 1 of this course was so that I wouldn't have to cover most of version control, Git, working in teams. I expect at this point that we've all been through the hell that is figuring out how to work together. And we can focus on pure productivity from here on out. It's going to be a very industry style, except that you don't really have a project manager. I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't do. I'm just going to try to help you to produce your vision. Try to keep you from getting in your own way. So the lab periods are going to be work time in your groups, but I'll be meeting with each of the groups in an adjacent room, some room that is free. And the purpose of those meetings will be so that you can tell me what you've done, what you're planning to do, just getting a sense of what is the game that you are making so that I can provide some recommendations of here's what I would focus on, here's what I see as your minimum viable product, here's what I would want done by next week to be on pace for having a complete game at this point. But none of those are requirements. They're just meetings with me to hopefully be useful and structure you, get you on a path to success.
As far as grading for that, are we going to just grade it on the final term or will we be curious?
Yeah, so grading in this class is one of my proudest designs. There's an 80-20 breakdown as usual. 80% are the games, 20% are the exams. And the 80% that are the games, only 25% of that 80% comes from me. The other comes from the rest of you as you review each other's games. So you are designing games not for me, but for each other. And as you design games for each other, you are ultimately responsible for each other's grades, 75% of each other's grades from the game's perspective. Is it fun is a question that I cannot answer as one person. That's only something that a large enough sample size can answer. So the way that this works is each person reviews 4 games. That means that each game on average gets 11 to 12 reviews, and 60% of your class grade is going to be the average of those grades. The rest of it will be me looking at the quality of those reviews. So I will be grading how good are your reviews at a technical level, at an analysis and an analytical level. So I have high expectations of what communication looks like as you go through the process of providing feedback for a game. This will tie back to all of the material that we saw in the first part of the course. So I will expect you to have retained some of that information and be able to call on a lot of the design that we talked about so that you can analyze what someone else made, point out design flaws, understand why at a design level you like or don't like aspects of their game. And that will be the part of the grade is the quality of your review. There will be the opportunity to, what is the word I can't think of? I hate my brain sometimes. Right on the tip of my tongue, too. Starts with a C. You have the ability to disagree with how a review was written. Yes, that is exactly the word that I'm looking for. You will be able to contest any review that you receive. Basically, you're going to receive all of the written reviews of people who wrote reviews for your game, names stripped. So you just receive a bunch of reviews. And if any one of those reviews you feel like was unfair to your game, unfair to what the actual game was, like they didn't play your game, or they have a bunch of issues that aren't based on the actual design of the game. They just don't like this genre. That's not something that I could prepare for. And they didn't take that seriously in the review and wrote it from the perspective of, I just don't like this game. Then I will make changes to grades as needed to make sure that it is fair. But the bulk of that work will come from all of you writing those reviews. So I like that design a lot. I am biased. I recognize my own bias. I should not be the one to review everyone's games. I have my own personal preferences, and they will get in the way of how I see the design of a game. I would rather have a larger sample size.
So you're not doing a whole lot, right?
I'm not doing a ton of grading. I'm grading your reviews. And then the other part of this are the peer reviews that will scale your grade. If you've taken 350 from me, something very similar is in this class where on a week-by-week basis, you will be reviewing each other with regards to both the effort and technical contribution. And that just ensures that everyone is equally contributing to the game. It's not meant to be quite as intense as 350 was. It's just meant to be when the groups are size 3 instead of the size 5, 6, 7 that we have in software engineering. When you have 3 people, if one person is not pulling their weight, it's a big burden on a group of 3 people. So it's not, I don't have a specific formula for scaling grades based on that like I do in software engineering. It's mostly just to make sure that there is a course outcome that everyone is held accountable for participating in and contributing to the game project so that you are not designing this all on your own. Same textbook, you already have it. You'll just be referring to it at this point. So it's less required, even though it says it's required, it's less required for this than it was for the last class. Same responses. I always guarantee responses in 24 weekday hours. If you email me and more than 24 weekday hours have elapsed, nudge me. That means it got lost, it got buried, I got busy. Nothing against you. Just let me know that I failed to respond to something and I will apologize and do it. Here's the exact grading policy I just described. 20% to written exams. They'll be during our Wednesday class on weeks 5 and 10. So I'm not taking any time from our ability to design, work on games. This is just strictly part of the class period. I think I did, yeah. Then the 80% is broken down into a 25 and 75, which just ends up being 60 and 20 of the overall grade, but 25 and 75 of that 80%. So quality of your games reviews, I grade that. And then the review average your games receive. Random people in this class will be doing that. The target for the games that you create this quarter is, are they fun for people? That's basically it. There aren't a ton of technical limitations. I'm not going to tell you that a game needs to be made in 2D or made in 3D or it needs to adhere to a particular genre or anything else. I'm completely hands off. You can design what you want.
Is there a good heuristic to be mindful of, like, what's a reasonable scope for like 4 weeks?
Yeah, we will certainly be talking about that early on, as I'll probably be even listening in on what you're deciding today. And I want to have a very early meeting with people, even as early as tomorrow, potentially, to look at what are people's prototypes? What do you anticipate your prototypes looking like? What's your minimum viable product? People tend to overscope these a lot. So it is very important that we keep this to a reasonable expectation for 4 weeks. And we'll also talk about that when it comes time to review. As someone who has gone through making a game in 4 weeks, you will all understand exactly what to expect from each other's games. And we'll talk about how to review. I have a sample good review that I wrote, and I think this quarter I will write a sample bad review. So just to give you a sense of what am I looking for with regards to a good quality review, and what is an example of something that similar to something I've seen that is not good quality. Yeah.
Are we gonna play everyone's games?
No. I think I've historically done 4. I will assign each person 4 games, but then on weeks 5 and 10, it's probably going to be Friday after lab. We will have an optional. I hesitate to call it a party, but it's going to be a party. I plan to bring in some food and invite other professors and other students to come in and play the games that we've designed.
Are we going to be receiving other people's games as like executables? We can go home and download on like a more powerful computer.
Yes.
Home? Okay.
Yep.
And then what are you going to do then for this? What kind of computers would you host them on? Are these good enough for that?
They are good enough for that, but I would recommend probably developing on your own machine where possible. But I have had success with people working on these machines.
Oh, I meant to showcase it.
Oh, for showcasing, this works just fine. Yeah, we set up and host on these machines. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. My wife comes occasionally and plays games. I was advertising this to my sister-in-law the other day. She seemed really excited about the ability to come play games that students had made. So it's a good time. You get to be very proud of it. The other thing to take note of is there's the electrical engineering capstone presentation that happens down in the Catalyst lobby. I think that's around week 6 of the quarter. So our first games are usually on display. I try to rope us into that as well. And We just have the ability for electrical engineers and other people who are interested to come play our games, and we participate in that. So there'll be a little bit of outside of class expectation of being around and available for that, but it is optional. I do not require it every single person to be here for those that week 5 and week 10 experience. But if you can be, it's very rewarding to show people what you've been working on, because you will be proud of it and you should be proud of it. We get some really cool projects and games in this class. I don't know if I can say it's my favorite class to teach, because I say that about just about every class that I teach, but I really enjoy watching people make games and how proud people get of their creations, because they're really cool. So yeah, reviews are going to be due on Fridays, weeks 5 and 10, and then games are going to be due at the end of week 4 and end of week 9 at those Sundays. So you'll basically have 5 days to write the reviews of the 4 games that you were assigned before we hop back on the bandwagon for developing game 2. Everything else is standard. I don't really have a schedule. Normally, my last page of my syllabi are a schedule, a week-by-week schedule. We're really only covering the one topic in here on the side, which is reinforcement learning agents. So whatever we cover in the first 4 weeks, that'll be what's on exam 1 on week 5. Whatever we cover after that, that'll be what's on exam 2 in week 10. Don't plan to have a final, just the 2 exams. And that's about it. It's a simple class as far as the classes that I designed go. Make 2 games, take 2 exams. Write 8 reviews. Read 22-ish reviews of the games that you made. Any questions or concerns about grading, about what's going to happen in the class?
So I think I remember you saying that game 1, we can pretty much do whatever we want, if we're gonna have more requirements for units.
There will be optional extra credit requirements for undergrads, requirements for graduate students with regards to putting the reinforcement learning agents to practice. But you can opt into that for extra credit as an undergraduate.
So for both games, we can pretty much design whatever game we want.
Yep. And you can reuse assets and scripts and code, whatever you want from your first game and your second game. Since you're working with different people, they're all bringing different things to the table. So you can push yourself a little bit further, because you will have done some of the work. And a lot of the questions you can ask yourself at the start of the second game is, how do we want to utilize what we developed in game 1? What can we do with these different disjointed pieces? How can we bring them together to make an interesting third game, second game based on these other 3 games components? So that's another reason why I do that. Other questions or comments or concerns? All right. RTA is sitting over there. That's Stephen again. You probably knew him from last quarter, but if not, there's not a ton to do with regards to grading. It's a lot of just housekeeping of making sure that everyone is contributing with the peer reviews that you'll be submitting on a weekly basis. And then making sure that reviews are disseminated, compiled, and sent back to you in a reasonable time period. So it's a pretty light workload from a grader's perspective as well. I think so. It's smaller than game div 1. I think we had about 2/3 holdover. Some people just needed the extra class, their very last elective, or were graduating that quarter, which is sad. I like to see most people take the 2-quarter sequence. Just taking the first quarter feels like all of the work without any of the payoff. This class should feel like the payoff for the work that you put into the first class. You get to go apply it and create something that you want to create. Other questions? Okay. I think it's time to make our first group then. This is a very important decision. So remember that grad students cannot work together. Actually, I don't see, there's Akiva. So grad student number 1, grad student number 2, and then David's online as grad student number 3. I'll find a place for you unless you know who you're working with, David. So we'll find a place for you. So maybe you've had a chance to think about who you want to work with. So go ahead and figure that out. And
All even groups of 3.
yeah, groups of 3.
Sure.
And just note that whoever you decide, you cannot work with for game 2. And if you are looking for a group at some point, just raise your hand. And then we can try to find people who are raising their hands, and those will be a good group. Raising hands? Yeah, you can go in.
Yeah.
And so we have a 1, 2, 3 there.
Sounds like we're all gonna be in your
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
We also have David online. And Simon. Simon, do you find it? So they're 3. We need to make sure that we have everyone.
It's like you feel like maybe he's interested in it. Like it was
Oh, okay, so we.
yeah.
No, the changes in the pieces. Yeah, I do.
And then second.
But the ones that I'm still is you just have like likely to make
That would be fine.
Just about see if I can make a fight. Items. So I can tell anybody just has to do a stack bonus. Yeah, we're told.
That's why I wanted to solve it. So there's such a different other teams, I just came in out here. Yeah. There's like a lot. I was like, and then all I know is. I have very specific info. That's later to have. That's huge, really better. There's Dave. So we won't be able we're waiting for some. Oh, realize how it
That's 50, man.
Oh, so man, you're just it just kind of works.
Yeah, I was pretty wrong. I think I was skip it up. And I like that drawing aspect of it just because it's so many ideas to take over. Yeah. But it's not that's where he's at. It's like I'm
Are we doing our,
I've seen you play it.
Three totally different. I feel like it's funny how
But that's what I was saying. Probably seen them, it's like.